Kia ora everyone, welcome to the PB Tech Business and Microsoft Modern Collaboration virtual panel. My name's Irene Naidu. I'm the National Vendor and Business Development Manager from the PB Tech Business team. In the current business climate, we're conscious our clients are looking at and working on digital transformation, so this virtual event will go over Microsoft's modern collaboration tools and include demos and advice around mapping this journey. So at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A with the panel, which leads me to introducing the panel. To my left, we have our Head of PB Tech Commercial, Rodney Featherstone. We have Paul Warren, our Windows Insider MVP, and our Account Director, Hayley. And on that note, I'll hand over to Rodney to take us through the session.
Thank you very much, Irene. So today is the first of our couch sessions for 2021, so welcome and really thank you for tuning in. The agenda for today, we will keep it short. It's a 45-minute session. We'll be going through some discussions on the journey of our particular slice of the digital transformation process. You know, it can mean all things to all men and women, of course. However, one of the big things that we're finding with the COVID in particular is the migration of your file storage from your legacy sort of hard drives, your legacy shared drives, through to SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive for Business. So that's the discussion items for today, and we'll be going through that journey. We'll also have a demo that Paul is going to do on his laptop over there that's going to show you some of the user interface features of that and also the admin features as well. So we'll come back to the couch after the demonstration and then talk about the impact of people, because as we all know, we only pretend to be in the IT game. What we're really in is the people game, and helping ensure that people in business are taken along for the journey and really start to utilise some of the tools that are available. And then we'll wrap up with some questions, and we've got an offer to present to you at the end. So with the start of this process, I'll be introducing Hayley. Hayley is going to show you some of the new devices that we've got available now. It's an HP X2 2-in-1 detachable device, and she is going to demonstrate the pen and the inking features of that. Whilst Hayley is showing us that, she'll talk you through the process that she's going through to utilise some of those tools, and at the end she will hit the save button, and that's when the real guts of the session kicks into gear. You know, what happens when you hit the save from a technical perspective and also from a user perspective. So Hayley, why don't you talk us through what you're doing here, and we can watch you in action.
Thanks, Rodney. So I've just got the PB Tech website up. Pretend, out on site, chatting to a client. They tell me, we want to fix some stuff on this, we want to change some things around. So I'm going to go into first my snipping tool. I'm going to go to a new snip, change the mode to rectangular snip, which we'll all probably be familiar with. And I'm just going to take this slice here. I'm going to go into the pen just here, and I'm going to say, look, this is actually where we want to put a new mascot. New mascot, excuse my appalling handwriting. I'm then going to circle this one here and this one here. Marketing team wants us to change these around, so we're going to change those. Highlight this, highlight that one. These we might want to change the wording, something like that. And I'm going to hit copy that one. Pull up a Word doc. I'm going to paste that in there, like so. I'm then going to swap into the camera on this device, and I'm out. I've seen this poodle, and I'm going to take a photo because this would make a great mascot for us. So into the photo, I'm actually going to create a new snip, but I'm going to use the freeform snip, which is so lasso this, because that's all I want. Copy that one there, back into our Word doc. Going to paste that. I'm actually going to change some formatting around on here as well. Going to bring it so I can pop it in line with our text. Going to move it, if it lets me. There we go. Resize, bring them right up here. New mascot. I'm then going to share the document. OneDrive, document 5, we'll use that as an example. And I'm going to share this to Paul. And here we go. So access our little keyboard down here, and it is demo Paul has given me his address. And this can be anyone in your organisation. You've got a link, you've got all of that. All right, handing that back over to Paul and Rodney to take us through the ins and outs of actually sharing and looking at the documents. Thank you so much.
That's great, thanks Hayley. So as we've all grown up over the years, we have gone from saving that file onto the hard drive of your laptop. Then we matured, of course. Back in my day, that was when NT first existed. You saved it onto a shared drive, and you were able to allocate that permissions to departments and users and all of those kinds of things. So that's really lasted us for a long time, 20 odd years.
Yeah.
And now we're coming into some new tools, and so OneDrive has come along with the other add-ons like Dropbox and so forth. And so now you can save it into the cloud. But along with saving it to the cloud came some complexities, which we're going to work through today. Microsoft's version of that was OneDrive. Now we've gone into OneDrive for Business, and in the market there's a lot of, in the medium-sized business market, there's a lot of confusion around OneDrive versus OneDrive for Business, and we really need to get to the bottom of that. But the next level is SharePoint. And let's come to that shortly, along with Teams. So, Paul, do you want to talk to us firstly about? Let's talk about Dropbox versus OneDrive.
Sure.
Who's to say that Dropbox is any better or worse than Microsoft? What's your perspective on that?
So I guess they're all cloud services. So the real game here for people in the organisation is being able to access their company data wherever they may be. I mean, the current climate of hybrid working with what's happening on the planet at the moment means that we have to adjust from what we used to do to what we need to do now very quickly. So being able to provide access to shared files, etc., Dropbox can be an option. Some people have fired up a OneDrive Personal. That's something as well. But I guess the main concern is a number of organizations will have major concerns around if that data is then started to be stored in a personal OneDrive account or a Dropbox account, then the organization actually can lose control of that data, and it can lead to things like data leakage, not intentionally or even intentionally, but that's the primary concern here.
So in the Microsoft suite, then we've got OneDrive Personal, we've got OneDrive for Business, and then we've got SharePoint.
Yeah.
So in my ignorance, I thought SharePoint was some magical intranet with pretty little pictures and graphs and charts and websites and all that kind of stuff all over it. And now we're using that as a file repository. How does that look to the users?
So I guess, yes, SharePoint, a lot of people do use it for web content, the company intranet side. So that side of thing doesn't actually change at all. When we're starting to look at, hey, we need to provide a replacement for H drive, Z drive, whatever drive, well, SharePoint, you can have multiple different sites. So you could actually just stand up a site, and within SharePoint it has what they call a document library. And that's where all the files will get stored. And you can control how you do that and break it up depending on, there are ideas around, do we just lift and shift everything into SharePoint, or do we kind of take a bit more of an information management point of view and decide, hey, how are we going to break this up? Because there are limitations to SharePoint Online as opposed to your traditional file servers as well.
So why would you use SharePoint file repository compared to OneDrive for Business, and how are they related, and how are they related, and what are they used for?
Yeah, they definitely are related. Both are built on the foundation of SharePoint. So, but the whole idea of OneDrive for Business is that I guess it's part of that your corporate identity is your personal area. That if you think of having your H drive and redirecting your documents to an H drive, etc., where you would save data that is really just associated with what you're doing, as opposed to data that is more aligned with what your team's doing. So that's again the shared drive. So that's really the difference. The conception is you've got your traditional H drive and you say your traditional shared drive, whatever letter that may be. Well, OneDrive for Business is kind of the new place for your H drive, and SharePoint Online is the new place for your Mac drives, for all your other SJ other drives.
Right. So in our example, then our SharePoint would be the PB Tech drive, would have the sales and the marketing and the manufacturing and the warehousing and all of those departments, and they have all their little shares and access controls around that.
That's correct.
And I would have my OneDrive for Business for my Rodney stuff, where
That's
I
correct.
show all my things in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is there tools to manage that? Because already we've gone from now having one tool, which is your shared drive and your folders, to having these two spaces. Are there tools to manage that, and how does that look to the user?
So basically being able to, there will be some adoption and change required, because again, we're losing our traditional lettering, drive letterings. But I'll show in the demo how we can kind of get around some of these things. But it also opens up a lot more abilities for the people using these devices to connect to their content, whether they're on their corporate device or say if they're out in the field on a mobile device. So yeah, there is a little bit of change in adoption required, but overall it can be, if managed well, relatively seamless.
So if I was up a power pole and taking a photo of a transformer that I'd just installed and wanted to save it to my documents, and I was using a shared drive in the past,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'd need to have connectivity. There was never really any decent caching of your files on your device in years of old. How's that changed with SharePoint?
So I guess with these modern tools, I guess, like you said, the example, you'd probably take the photo, you'd probably have to climb down, plug your phone into your laptop,
Oh, I'm very
download
clever.
the picture.
I'm very, very clever.
So
I can do it all at the top.
Do it
of
at the top?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you can do all of that and then try and connect back and,
Yeah.
Whereas with these modern tools, you can literally take a photo, you're online already. If you need to copy it into a document or email it directly, you can literally email it from OneDrive app. Actually has a camera function. So you could literally take a snap and send directly or upload it somewhere and it's done.
And when my particular power pole doesn't have internet coverage, does it, like my phone at the moment synchronises my photos when I get back into Wi-Fi? Is the same kind of tools available
Exactly the same.
with the modern tools?
Definitely.
Okay, now before we jump into the demo, let's throw Teams into the mix, because just like SharePoint, most of the questions and the inquiries that we have at PB Tech at least are about using our software development team to develop SharePoint sites for people, where most of the people are thinking about that as an intranet site and a data sharing and collaboration and targets and graphs and Power BI and all of those kinds of things. There's very little discussion around just simply using it as a file repository. Along comes our Teams discussion, and it must be at least 95% of the inquiries we get at PB Tech are saying, should I be using Zoom or should I be using Teams? So in New Zealand, the market is very clearly considering these to be what we're looking at today's session on, which is a video collaboration tool. So throw some files into the mix there, and how on earth does that work?
So definitely. Teams is one of those, one-stop shops for if you want a full collaboration. One of the examples I like to have is when, we're in our organisation, we have your traditional finance, marketing, IT, etc. But we want to stand up a quick little project with some sprint planning. We want to kind of act in a real agile manner. So rather than trying to figure out how we're going to give access, where is the data going to sit? Is it an IT project? So we have to figure out how to give marketing people access. Rather than doing that, you just stand up a Teams site, give the relevant people access to that, and then all of a sudden now we have a one place where people can collaborate. You can do your meetings, video conferencing, you can store files associated to this piece of work, you can use the whiteboard features, you can, lists features. There's a lot of different tools in M365 that integrate really nicely into Teams. So it's more than just the tool that we have video meetings with.
So where's this files saved?
So
in Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive for Business?
Definitely. So Teams itself is the foundation of Teams is SharePoint. So when you create a Teams site, it automatically generates its own document library. So within that site itself, you can actually go into your channels. There'll be a little file button on the tabs at the top. Click in there and you can actually start building out you can have folders, files, upload things out of there, share things to people. You can also, if you need to, make a couple of channels private. So you've got this big collaboration group and you decide, okay, only some key stakeholders need access, so you can have like a private channel for them, and so other people can't come and have a look at content that may not be appropriate for them.
Excellent. And so when I go back to my admin, put my admin hat on then, and I'm backing up and I'm antivirusing, I'm protecting all of the data that's in the Microsoft tenant for my company, if I'm backing up all the SharePoint data, that includes all the Teams files?
It does, yeah. So a lot of third-party tools that back up M365, you can essentially decide what you're wanting to back up, and that includes your team sites.
Yeah. Why don't we move on to the demo,
Sure.
and we'll work through some of these things. Just while Paul's moving over there, what we're going to cover in the demo is just some of the user features, what the user interface will look like, some of the collaboration features, and also from an admin perspective, what are some of the platform limitations, how do you maximize some of these tools with the use of Intune and device management, etc. So Paul, are you ready over there?
Righty. So here we go with the demo. So what I've got here is a couple of virtual machines I've created. So we've got Demo 1, which is a finance machine. We've got Demo 2, which is an IT machine, and Demo 3, which is also a finance machine. So I guess what we'll do is we'll cover a little bit of what we looked at in our last presentation last year around OneDrive for Business. So when these devices, all these devices are all managed in Intune, and they're all controlled with Intune profiles, which means that joining OneDrive is all very automatic and seamless. So all the users can just fill up all their documents, and it's all in OneDrive. So what we'll do here is we'll open up, here's a super secret finance. Oh, I apologize. Let's go to our documents. So here we've got our documents, and it's our documents to share. So this is our personal space where, hey, you know, I want to create some content, and if I need to share it out with some people directly from my OneDrive, I can do that. So here's the sharing options. So you've got a number of options here, and you can just basically pick and choose what you really require. So that's kind of the basics of OneDrive for Business. So let's have a quick little look into the admin portal. So this is the OneDrive Admin Center. So first I'd like to show you the couple of the sharing options that you can have. So in here, that previous window that you saw with the different options for sharing, this is where you can set the default link type for your organization. It doesn't prevent people from using the other ones, but it just kind of helps control that behavior. Down here with the external sharing section, this is the area where we can decide what can actually be shared out of the tenant from OneDrive and SharePoint. So at the moment, this is the default setting of anyone can share any links, and it's very, very open. So depending on your organization, and you know, you can talk to PB Tech around what's appropriate for you. You might want to kind of, you know, trim some of this back to just having specific people sharing what they need. Another option here as well is compliance. A really, really key setting here, and something I would highly recommend everyone setting, is the retention setting. So a lot of organizations may have regulatory requirements where they need to keep their data for X number of years. So the retention policies, this is where you would set that. So if someone is using data in your organization and they leave and they delete their data, it's all retained in the M365 tenant. Also, what else we have is you have some basics configurations here around how you want devices to interact with OneDrive. This is a sort of environment where you can configure these settings, say if you don't have the premium licensing like Azure AD P1. If you did have the premium licensing, I'd recommend probably it's better to use conditional access. All right, let's move over to looking at SharePoint Online now. So basically, SharePoint Online, this is part of the big Office 365 suite. Users can basically go to a specific link that you've set up, and they'll be able to access the document libraries that you've configured. So here I've got a site called Demo, and I've got a couple of document libraries. One's called IT, one's called Finance. So this is a finance machine. So if I try and access IT, you'll see that when it comes back, that I won't actually be able to have access to it because I'm using role-based access. However, if I go into Finance, I'll be able to see the files and folders associated to the finance team. So a lot of people are still kind of used to, hey, I really prefer my X drive or my Z drive, or I want to access all this data out of File Explorer. So you can actually do that. As you can see here, we've got a File Explorer has been connected. It uses the OneDrive client. So I'll just demo how that actually happens. So here we've got the second finance machine. And you can see that there is no tenant level access to SharePoint and File Explorer. What you can do is you can go in here, you click sync, allow that to sync, and what this does is it uses the OneDrive client to connect. And as soon as that's done, you can see you get a little toast notification saying you're now syncing. And in File Explorer, eventually it'll show up. There'll be a little icon similar to this other virtual machine. Now, one really important setting I'd highly recommend as well is, and you set it in Intune, is enabling files on demand, because if you have very large libraries, OneDrive will start synchronizing all of those libraries, all the files to those machines, which could be problematic. With files on demand, it synchronizes just what was essentially a stub. So you can see down here, we go into Demo Finance. These icons here, you can see the files here. It has a status of a green tick, which means the file is actually residing locally on this machine, as well as up in the cloud, rather than downloading it. And the folders here are up in OneDrive. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to open up, have a bit of an example of some real-time collaboration here. And looks like the demo gods are not on my side right now with showing OneDrive, showing the SharePoint library and File Explorer, but that's okay. What we can do is we're going to open up this one file that's in SharePoint Online. And we're going to do an example of real-time collaboration. So as you can see, we have an example here of the same document is open. Demo 1 Finance is this device here, but you can actually see down here we've got Demo 3 Finance is also accessing this file. So what we can do is we can now start doing some typing, and you'll see that it actually shows up on the other device as well. So this is a really cool example of being able to have multiple different people working on the same file. It all sits up in SharePoint and everything just synchronizes as you go along. There is a scenario as well, say I'm offline. What if I need to update a document? You can continue to do that. And when you come back online, it will synchronize back up with the live document up in SharePoint. There can be a time where there might be some conflicts. The Word will prompt you, hey, there's a conflict, and you get to decide which is the most appropriate thing to choose. There's also built-in version history. So if you go through and find that some of the edits that have been made are completely incorrect, you can go through and revert back to a different version of the document. So what we'll do now is we'll just switch back over to the SharePoint Admin Center and have a bit of an example of some role-based access. So here we have basically the SharePoint site demo, and you've got the finance document library and the IT document library. So if I click on the finance document library, and I just go up to the cog here and go to library settings, click on permissions for this document library. And what you'll be able to see here is that we've got some specific groups that we've added to the document library. So you can literally remove some of the built-in SharePoint groups and replace them with domain groups, whether it's from your on-premise Active Directory or your Azure Active Directory. And this is literally how you would control access into the document libraries. Just a couple of things to be aware of with SharePoint. There are some limitations. So there are some limitations around the OneDrive sync client. There are, there's a cap on how many files that the OneDrive client is capable of synchronizing. So just be aware of that. There's also limits to the data you can consume in SharePoint itself. So depending on the plan you've got, most of either the enterprise or the business ones have, you get 1 terabyte of data for your entire organization, plus 10 gigabytes per licensed user. There's also some things to be aware of around the migration side of things. So as you're migrating data up into SharePoint Online, there are limits around, as you can see here, we've got files larger than 15 gigabytes, 0-byte files. There's also illegal characters and a whole bunch of issues here. So just be aware of these sort of things. We could touch on as well on some migration. How actually do we get this data up into SharePoint? So Microsoft do have a migration manager tool. It's quite a decent tool to use. You can just pick and choose. It'll do some analysis on some of the illegal files that you may need to address. I'd like to recommend myself though. I'm a big fan of the ShareGate tool. ShareGate, it really does what it says here. It is quick and easy. You get a lot of information out of it. You can run scans and you can mitigate some of the issues well in advance, and it just makes that migration process very, very smooth. Okay, finally in this demo, what we'll do is we'll just quickly touch on Microsoft Teams. So let's go to the right VM. So also along with what we've done with SharePoint Online, we've created a couple of Teams sites. So here the finance team also has a Teams site created for it. It gets automatically generated. You can use Azure AD dynamic groupings that will help you with that. And again, what we've got, we can see some really cool collaboration tools, like for sprint planning. I love using Tasks for Planner. You can build out tasks, you can assign them to people, you get alerted. You can also, just go back to the general channel, you can also see up here in the tabs, what I've also been able to do is I've added the finance document library to this team as well. So that can be really useful if people want to be able to consume the SharePoint data out of Teams itself. One thing to kind of be aware of though is that Teams has its own document library, so you also have files here, and there can be a bit of confusion and maybe some collaboration overload, what I call. So just be conscious of that when working with this product. That about wraps it up for the demo, so I'll hand it back to Rodney.
Yeah, why don't you pop back over here to the couch, Paul. So look, one of the things that we wanted to talk about now was really the people side of the business. How do you take people with you on the journey? What are the good news stories? How does it get done well? How does it get done poorly? So Paul, I know that you've got an example just recently in the Pacific Islands of how things went well.
Yes, so I work for an insurance company, and we have offices here in New Zealand, but we also have offices in 8 Pacific Island countries. So recently we transformed them to modern workplace. We took away all their old desktops, and they all got nice shiny new laptops that were Intune managed, went through autopilot. The sequence was really, really lovely. The next step in that journey was, right, we need to kind of take what's on their file servers and how do we manage that data. So we used ShareGate, and we migrated all of their file server data up into SharePoint document libraries. So now these people basically are able to access all their data with no VPN, and they can just work smoothly. If a cyclone's coming in, they all go home and they're happily working away. Well, to a degree with a cyclone. So how did we do that? One of the key factors around this was we really needed to get people in the business involved as early in the piece of work as possible. By not having them involved, I really do feel you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. So we got some people involved. We built a little MVP environment, minimum viable product, and we got some of our friends in Fiji to start using these tools as early to day one as possible. We started showing them a couple of the collaboration features, the sharing features, how to use it in their file explorer, how to use it on the browser. Interestingly enough, we found a lot of people preferred using the browser version. So that was quite an interesting piece to find out.
Yeah.
And it just organically grew by having people involved rather than just IT. And then we developed them, they became the champions, and they started showing. There was a bit of envy in the office as well. Hey, when do I get that? So, you start kind of developing that kind of feel.
And bring on the FOMO.
It's a powerful tool for an IT migration.
Yeah, exactly. So let me tell you about another customer of ours, a very small customer, 20 staff, that didn't have the same experience. They're trying to do it themselves to a certain degree, went from Dropbox actually, found out that they were already paying for SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, so why on earth would I pay for two things that are exactly the same? Chucked it into OneDrive for Business, start working around and finding out actually this is gross compared to Dropbox, because you can't share folders and share file permissions and all that kind of thing. Real difficulty spinning up the SharePoint, then didn't use a tool such as ShareGate, but was trying to synchronize it through the OneDrive for Business synchronization app, and it's just ugly. Is there, PB Tech's part of our offer that we're going to talk to you about later is when you can engage with our services to come out and actually just take it out of your hair, use a tool such as ShareGate just to migrate you and take all your permissions with you. So it really does depend on your inclination towards IT for starters, but also how deep your file structure and your share structure is going, I guess.
I mean, my M365 is a huge suite of products. There's more products than there are stars in the sky, essentially. So finding the right product for your organization is quite key. So, and I mean, that's where really you need to engage with PB Tech to start saying, hey, this is where we want to go on our journey. How do we get here? So it's not a case, yes, you can go in and start turning things on and having a go, but this is really genuinely where you really need a bit of expertise help, getting yourselves involved and finding the right solution for the right organization. That's really key.
Have you had an experience? I mean, one of the things that we do, I like to think reasonably well, is some video and training sessions on our dashboard within PB Tech. Have you found in your experience that taking little snippets of video and using that as a training process to be beneficial?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'll be the first to put my hand up to say if you're going to throw me in a 4-hour training session, I'm more than likely going to zone out, and probably after about 20 minutes. Those little short, sharp how do I do's videos, phenomenal, and you get a lot of uptake, and it really can energize people to just start using these tools. A lot of I didn't know this could do that. It's very powerful.
Excellent. Well, I think that's about it, actually. We've covered off, we've been looking at the questions as you've been coming in and covered off most of those in the demonstration and our discussions now. What PB Tech would love to offer you as a part of attending today is just some consultancy time. We've got a special on at the moment, not a special, I shouldn't talk retail. We've got an offer for business at the moment. If you purchase 20 or more business laptops before the 31st of August, well, in fact, order them before the 31st of August, because we'll struggle to get them to you at this current situation. However, if you order those, then we'll give you half a day's worth of consultancy to help you, walk through the path of your digital transformation in terms of your files. Our theory behind it at PB is just to, keep it simple. As Paul said, there is a million ways you can skin the file cat with Microsoft, and we've got a little, cookie cutter model that suits most medium to large businesses in New Zealand. So we'd love to engage with you on that, and certainly here to help. So hopefully today has been of benefit to you. Anything you want to add finally, Paul?
No, just move to the cloud. It's, you'll find it is, your users will embrace it, and you'll just find it's an awesome journey.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for joining us, team, and look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thanks, bye.